17th. Start over. Going to call the regular monthly meeting of the Stormwater Committee to order at 1:04 p.m. It's Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. We're in the Old Town Hall, upper level meeting room, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton. It's the public meeting, the meeting being video and audio recorded for posting on YouTube. We have information for the Zoom meeting, and I see we have people in attendance. I stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attendance. Mr. Phillips.
David Phillips is here.
Caledonia. Yeah. Barry.
Here.
Nancy Boulat. Here. So we have a quorum. Who do we have on? Okay, I see Mr. Reardon and Mr. Pearson from Weston and Sampson. Is there anybody else on from either?
Nope.
Grasshopper or Clearway?
Just three petitions.
Okay, if anybody else comes on from Grasshopper or Clearway, let me know. We can take them out of order if we haven't already done it. I don't know. I didn't hear from either one saying that they would be joining us, but just in case they do, or any of the public that may join us. Agenda item 4A, Maris Lane drainage problems update. Mr. Ferry. The last time we talked about this, we hadn't been able to go and make any determinations or look at anything because we hadn't had the rain. Then the monsoons came.
Yes, we had three large events. Didn't take care of the water instantly, but it did take the water in, and I haven't heard any complaints.
You mean it appeared to be working?
Yes. The system that the private one put in, yes.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions, comments about Maris Lane? We'll move to the next one. All right, this is going to drop off the agenda unless the residents get in touch with us or unless there's another circumstance that
Grasshopper.
needs to be brought to us. Okay. Ahmed, are you there? Ahmed?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Ahmed. Okay. I would like a motion to take agenda item 4C, Weston and Sampson Engineering Projects, Brook Street Solar, out of order.
So moved.
You have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Reardon or Mr. Pearson, would you like to give us an update or information on if you have anything on Brook Street? If not, you know, I think I'm going to do instead. We did the site visit down there. Unfortunately, the basin was full. So, Mr. Ferry, you want to give a little just about the site visit? And then I'm going to call on Mr. LaChance, who is here, because he's the one overseeing the work locally for Grasshopper. Is that okay with you, Ahmed?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ferry, just a day of the visit.
The day of the visit was a day after a rain event. They hadn't had a chance to drain, even if it was working properly. It was full. Mr. LaChance had canceled the excavator that was lined up to do the test. While we were there, we did a quick site visit throughout the both spaces, the one in the front and that one in the back. to see the current conditions with that type of rain event. And there was some small discussion with Weston and Sampson that was there.
Okay, Mr. LaChance, would you come up to the podium? Would you slide that podium over to the table? It's this round, not that one, the round one, man. That, if you could move closer, so it'll pick up your voice. Thank you.
Hello, Jason LaChance, Family Tree Services. Did you guys have any specific questions?
No, I had to leave because I had to assess this meeting. When I left, there was going to be pumping done. So can you tell us what happened, if anything's happened since then? Because I know we've had bad weather.
Yeah, nothing has happened since because we wanted to get to this meeting to go over the procedure and everything that was spoke about with Weston and Sampson. To get our final approval so that everybody knew what was what. During the meeting, we spoke about getting approval to pump the basin, which would entail 2 3-inch pumps, which would go at a slow rate with filter socks on both pumps so that there is no sediment going down the stone wall. It'll be monitored to make sure nothing like that happens. Once the basin is pumped, we spoke with Weston and Sampson on how, don't quote me exactly, but this is my recap of what was said, is there would be 2 holes dug, 3 samples per hole, top, middle, and bottom. Each of those samples will be labeled in a 5-gallon bucket or whatever volume they specify. And then those will be sent to, I've chosen SW Cole, which is a sampling testing company. And once we know the quality of the sand, top, bottom, and middle, to see if the sediment in the top, correct sand was chosen and utilized, we'll have a better understanding of the material that was installed and the sediment content of the top, bottom, and middle to know if there is a drainage issue or infiltration issue due to over sediment in the levels. Does anybody have any questions on the front basin? Anybody?
You want to talk about the back basin?
As long as is everybody okay with the procedure that was chosen for that, Weston and Sampson?
Jim Pearson?
Yes, Jason, that sounds like a reasonable summary of what we discussed on site.
Okay. Would you mind if, I'm asking, I don't know how the procedurals go. If I dug the holes and sampled with maybe a stormwater commissioner, or do you guys need to be there?
Well, the board may wish to have us present just so we could witness the thing, but I'll leave that to the discretion of the board.
Okay,
Yeah, the proposal that was requested was that when the digging takes place,
yep,
there will be somebody from Weston and Sampson,
okay, okay.
okay?
All right, so that's something that needs to be aligned.
Ahmed may want a representative from his company, his own engineer.
Yeah,
Okay, oh, and that was, I was gonna recap all that in the end.
okay,
Um,
go ahead.
And then on the back basin, we discussed some of the transit elevations that you recorded. Weston and Sampson was asked to run the numbers in regards to the prints of adjusting the lip of the basin in the back of the drainage pipes. I think if the lips are lowered, I mean, that's all has to be worked out with the numbers. We spoke about some potential adjustments that we could make as long as the tolerances fit in the prints. And as Lisa mentioned, she'd like to see some more done to the outflow on that to prevent any sediment and a rush of water coming out of the back of those pipes. I know what we saw was an unprecedented rain. So, I mean, we're willing to increase whatever we have to increase in the back to help. If there is anything that needs to be done, but adjusting those pipes will accommodate for the collection at one end and not the other. As long as the numbers work, that's what we'd like to do.
Mr. Ferry, when you and I visited there during the summer, the back basin, the small basin, there were 2 black pipes sticking up out of the ground. And we could hear and see water running when we looked into those pipes. You did mention that they should have had some kind of a cover on them, a sock or a something? Are these the pipes we're talking about?
Yes, and there will be 100%, there will be a good, we're gonna design a rock lip that the water can permeate through the rocks, stopping any big debris from entering those pipes, as well as a screen on top of each of those. Just, it's simple, that'll stop the fine sediment, but allow the water to permeate into the pipes. What we spoke about was reducing there's a 90-degree elbow. And by reducing that elbow, as long as the transit measurement from one end of the basin to where the 90-degree elbow is cut meets the requirements for the drainage that Weston and Sampson will have to figure out the numbers. I think if we drop them, as long as once it builds or it gets in the basin, what we saw was water building up at one end. If that day I grabbed the Sawzall and cut it, the flow, because of the immediate drop, would create a number that would not fit. But if they're set lower to begin with, as it reaches the lip, it will only come out at a certain rate. From my understanding, as long as the measurements work per Weston and Sampson, that's what we'd like to do. Instead of, if we have to move material, we will. But that's another thing. And that's something that we're gonna have to bring Nick in to approve as well, from Nick Fassendola from, can't think of the company. What, Ahmed, what is Nick's
Level
company?
design,
Next Level Design.
level design.
Level, I'm sorry, to approve those finals as well. But that's what I'd like to propose.
Mr. Pearson would like to say something.
Yeah, Jim, I have a question. Jim Pearson, I have a question for you. I want to make sure that the town's role in this does not come across as the town ordering Grasshopper to do certain things. So I understand the need for calculations. My question is, should those calculations be done by the engineer, Nick Fassendola, representing Grasshopper, and letting you know about that so that we get two engineers talking that come up with a reasonable solution? I'm concerned at any project we have that the town orders something to be done. If it doesn't work, we got a big problem. So I need to know from an engineering standpoint, just a question about a procedural thing where there is a town engineer and a Grasshopper engineer.
Yes, absolutely. And Nancy, you've gotten right to the point of what I was going to bring up. So I think maybe, there were a lot of things that Jason and I talked about when we were on site, and I think maybe Jason may have come away with the meeting with a little bit of a different understanding than I did, because my thinking on how this needs to play out is that, we've observed that there are some things with that back basin that need to be corrected. And we brought those up in our comment letter. The issues, just to recap, were we had a section of that basin that was kind of lower in elevation than the outlet pipes. So water collects in that lower area and it has nowhere else to go and it just sits there. So that's something that needs to be corrected. The water needs to be able to drain to the outlet pipes. Okay. The second issue we had that we had brought up in our comment letter was that the as-built surveyed elevations of those pipe outlets did not seem to match with the design engineers' as-built calculations that were submitted for the purpose of demonstrating that the as-built condition was in compliance. So there needs to be a correction to those calculations anyway to show that the actual elevation that's out there actually does work, as opposed to the elevation that was used in the calcs. So to speak to the issue of that low spot in the basin, that is something that Jason and I talked about at length on site. And we theorized about some possible alternatives that could correct the issue, but it ultimately remains, in my mind, the developer and their engineer's responsibility to decide which of those avenues they want to pursue and to do whatever calculations are necessary to demonstrate that whatever avenue they pursue, will meet the requirements. Weston and Sampson isn't going to be doing any analysis and calculations on this. All we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing what the developer and their team come up with, to determine whether whatever corrective action they take still meets the original requirements and the intent of the design. So the solutions that Jason and I had talked about on site, one of them was that they could perhaps, they could fill in that low spot in the basin in order in order for there to be no standing water, or they could lower the elevation of the outlet pipes so that everything could then be regraded to drain towards those. And, we discussed those as possible alternatives, but the technical viability of those has to be verified by the developer's engineer.
I just want to add further to both Jims who are on. Level Design was not the original company. And the other gentleman unfortunately passed away. But at different times, Nick Fasandola has been involved. And so Nick is familiar with the project. But I don't believe he designed the original thing. So I would just let you know that. Ahmed, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. On that point, yes, you're right, Ms. Goulart. He's not the original designer, but then after we had the problems with the basin, he had to review both and the drainage of all the whole site. So he signed off on, like, he reviewed all the calculations of the front and the back basin and the whole stormwater calculations on the project. So he's very, like you said, very familiar with it, and he's the one that we would go back to have him review the any calculations if need be. So I had a couple of questions. So just to understand, Mr. Pearson, you're saying the as-built calculations don't match the as-built drawings? Is that what you said?
The calculations that we reviewed that appeared to be represented as being as-built calculations, within those calculations, they had certain elevations they were using that represented the outlet pipe elevations. Those elevations differed from the as-built survey that we were given.
Okay, understood. And the second question I had, the area that was lower than the outlet where the water was sitting, is that a design issue or a construction issue? Like, is that how it is on the design, or?
Based upon my review of the design plans versus the as-built plans, I would have interpreted it to be a construction issue.
Okay, so these are the two questions. And then on the sampling, do you want to involve the engineer now, or like you want the engineer to be answering all these design and calculation questions? Like, can we agree on a day for the sampling now, today? And that's a question for the town and for you, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably tell you my availability here and now, but obviously I won't speak for others in terms of their availability. And then in answer to the second part of your question, it sounded as though you're asking if the design engineer needs to have some presence or involvement when we're doing sampling.
Yeah.
I guess my answer to that would be that, ultimately it's going to be your design engineer's role to solve the problem. So if it would be beneficial for your design engineer to be on site when we do the sampling, you may want to give them the opportunity to choose to be on site to do that in case they feel that would help them understand the problem better so that they can develop a solution. we are doing this investigation work primarily to, see if we can see anything that allows us to give an opinion as to what we think the problem is. But again, that's all we're doing is we're, trying to help identify potential problems, knowing that ultimately your engineer is going to have to be the one to solve them.
Okay. Okay.
Does any of the committee members have any questions or comments? Do you have anything else?
I'd like to apologize for any type of way I might have phrased what I said. Working in this format with these different types of people. I apologize to Weston and Sampson if I might have come across a certain way. So going forward in the future, there will be no confusion as to what, how I speak or what I speak. And I apologize.
Oh, it's all right, Jason, no problem. Really.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, the reason I made the statement I did before we got into the discussion of the engineer for Grasshopper. This committee has been involved over the years with several, I'll call them sensitive projects, not related to solar farms. And the caution has always been from an engineering standpoint that the town can question whatever it is we're working on, whether or not it's detrimental to the town, whatever it is. But what the town and its engineers have to be careful is not to say, this is the problem and this is how you fix it. Simply because if this is how you fix it doesn't work, the town has a liability. So, I know you haven't had to deal with this, but basically, this is why I made this statement.
That's a good learning thing to say.
That's why I said it's important that engineers talk to engineers, because they each have a specific role and they're representing both the project and the town and their duties, although they work together and have to try to resolve it. The onus is on the engineer for the project owner. So that was the reason I stated that. Not everyone's aware of that, but as I say, the members of this committee that have had to deal with similar things in the past, it was kind of a reminder to everybody. So, Ahmed, do you have anything else?
No, just the next step. I think the next step would be the sampling, and in the background, we can start working on the other design issues or points that were raised here. But I think the first thing that we need to do is schedule the sampling date.
You realize, of course, everything is weather related here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm very flexible. I live very close by. Whatever works for Weston and Sampson, I can get an excavator anytime I need to on site. Nothing is frozen over solid. If I've got to move some ice, I can move ice. But pumping the basins won't be a problem for at least another 2 weeks. Hopefully we could get something maybe next week or the following.
When can you get Nick Fassendola involved? He needs to know what has taken place here and what is being, what his role is going to be and what the information is that's needed relative to the problems.
For sure. Like, I believe towards the end of next week, we should have him on board and everything. And even for the sampling, I don't think like him being present at the sampling is important as much as him being aware of what's going on. And then if there is any remediation work or anything, of course, then he might be required to be on site, especially on the back basin, the south basin.
Okay.
So
Mr.
for
Perry.
for the sorry, just to recap, for the sampling, as soon as next week, like towards the end of next week, we should be okay on our end. I speak for myself and our engineer.
Mr. Pearson, how does that work with your schedule?
Yeah, I have a lot of openings right now towards the end of next week, so there's a particular day or time that works to have an excavator out. I think I can be flexible.
And,
You guys tell me and I'll make it work.
okay, Mr. Ferry, obviously it's weather related.
Yeah.
So,
Anybody peered into next week's potential?
Mr. Ferry's in charge of weather.
For,
So,
what it's,
So what, go ahead, Jim.
I was just gonna say, for what it's worth, I'm looking at a calendar with the weather on it, and the 24th, 25th, and 26th are all pretty much above freezing, and currently it doesn't show any inclement weather, so.
Currently.
Currently, well, you know, we're in New England, so.
So, so Ahmed, your assignment is to keep that cold air up in Canada.
Okay.
All right, we don't need, it's called the Montreal Express when it comes down. So you're in charge of that. So what I'm going to suggest, Mr. Ferry, can we coordinate this through your office that
Yep.
get in touch with Heather in Tom's office, email or phone call, and let them know when you have a date. It looks like it's going to be done on this date, and she will make sure that the appropriate engineers know, and you'll be able to let Nick Fasandola know. It's probably the easiest way to do it because, in all honesty, it is weather dependent, and weather in this town really is Mr. Ferry because of his responsibilities. So Heather will be the contact person. And she'll make sure that we know this. Does that work for you?
You good with that?
As long as she doesn't have to come out in the cold.
So, okay, so that's how we'll do this. Before we go off this topic, so we all set as far as arranging something? Works?
Yeah.
Okay, so Heather's the contact. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on Brook Street Solar?
Lauren Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street. Just to confirm, this is supposed to drain within 72 hours and cover up to 100-foot storm, 100-year storm, sorry, not 100-foot, 100-year storm,
Conform to is the original plans as approved by the planning board.
which is a 100-year storm. Okay, when the samples are taken, how long does it take for the results to come back? About?
That's up to SW Cole, a sampling company. I would imagine testing sand shoots in one week. I don't know how backed up they are. That's SW, I mean, the area's leading sample testing place. It used to be, they're on 44, they moved to Bridgewater now. But I can't speak for their work.
Okay. And just to confirm, there will be someone from the town there when they do dig for the sample?
There will be more than one person from the town present. Stormwater Committee automatically, anyone who's available can be on site. Mr. Pearson.
You're right. That's what I'm just,
That's the.
reiterating.
Through Weston and Sampson.
okay. That's it. Thank you.
I just noticed we have under agenda item 5A, Brook Street Solar, Grasshopper. This is an update. I don't think there's anything else we need to do on this, do we? We're all set, pretty much. We've covered everything on Brook Street. So the project update item is really covered under the item we just had.
Yeah, there was one minor thing that we noticed on the site visit. There was some siltation problems on the barrier from the storm events. They need to be addressed.
Can you elaborate?
On the east, it was all on the east side, east and south, right? Yep, I don't know if Howard's gone,
He's still there, but I don't see him. Ahmed?
You can wave at him or something like, get his attention. Well,
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, would you repeat, Tom, what you just said?
yes, I was asked if there was anything else on Brook Street.
Excuse me, I should have done this. I need a motion to take agenda item 5A, Brook Street Solar Grasshopper Project Update out of order.
So moved.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
a second.
The motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead, Mr. Ferry.
Yes, during that site visit that we had, and we had several large rain events, obviously it's understandable. We did notice that the siltation barrier on the south side and the south corner, southeast corner and the east side near the back basin were compromised. They just need some attention.
Okay. Sure.
And Ahmed, it's really your obligation to have them inspected after each significant storm event. And I think I had emailed you asking for the SWIP. Did you ever find it?
I need to check my email again. I'm sorry. I might have missed your email. Sorry.
Well, so even if the site is, not under construction right now, we still should be getting the stormwater pollution prevention plan, inspection reports from you guys. And I haven't seen any in a long time. I don't even know that I have ever seen one, to be honest with you, on this one. Maybe, Todd had seen them, but I had never seen them.
During construction, before the stabilization, they were always they were kept in the folder on site, I think. So
Okay.
they might be still there even. So for the whole life of the project, yes. So we'll get a new inspection done, and we'll send it to you if
Okay,
there was
sounds
anything. Yeah,
Very good.
Good, thank you.
no problem.
Anything else? Anybody have under this item? We all set?
Yeah.
I think we're all set, Ahmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
So,
I request a motion that we take agenda item 5B, Clearway Solar Arujo Farms out of order.
So moved.
The motions, there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, who wants to start with Clearway? Don't everyone speak at once.
Go ahead, Dave.
Have you been up there recently?
Not recently, nope, I'm guilty, I haven't been up there recently, but last I was there, the grass was growing good.
I know, as far as, Clearway goes, we received the check to cover the stormwater final review on Clearway. And I did send an email to Mike Mullen asking him to, okay the proposal or the contract. I don't have anything else on Clearway right now. I think, Tom, is it your understanding the next thing is that the review of the Clearway project will begin? If we don't have problems up there that need to be addressed right now, then we should be moving towards Weston and Sampson doing the review? Is that the understanding?
For the as-built,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Jim Reardon, do you, are you going to do Clearway or is that Jim Pearson?
James Pearson and I will do Clearway together. He'll do most of the technical review on it, and I'll take a look at it from from a standpoint that, you know, from a technical review standpoint to make sure it's QC'd properly and then be sending it to you. But most of that'll happen through James.
Okay, I think all of the pertinent records that were requested are now in your custody. The ones that I found, I did give to Jim when we were at Brook Street. And they would have been some of Todd Pilling's notes and things on the stormwater plan. So I expect you're going to be hearing from the town administrator shortly so that you can start the schedule of work. And that proposal includes a site visit sometime in this process, correct?
I have to double check that, but that sounds right.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee have any questions about the work that Weston and Sampson is going to do on the Clearway project? Questions from the public?
Good afternoon, everybody. Francis Christofiuli, 1730 Wellington Street. Just to report to the committee, the drainage ditch and the basin are skating rinks right now. So that water has been standing there for over a week since the prior storms. Obviously, we've received a lot of rain, but from a design perspective, the expectation would be that there would be permeation into the ground as a result of the calculations that were done. I would also like to understand, from the committee, is the work that Weston and Sampson doing, is it also taking into account resident complaints with high water tables and water now permeating into adjacent basements?
No.
No, why not?
The work that's going to take place on the part of Weston and Sampson, I don't have the proposal in front of me, but in order for that project to go live, there has to be a final stormwater review. If Mr. Pilling were still on board, he would have completed that. So the question the Stormwater Committee raised was, up until the point of Mr. Pilling's leaving, the project followed the original approved plans as approved by the planning board. We need assurance that after he left, whatever was left to be done was done according to those approved plans. So this is what Weston and Sampson will be looking at.
Okay. Can I ask Weston and Sampson, would this plan with poor design, would that result in elevated water table and water permeating a basement that's been dry for 20 years?
I think the question's out of line.
I don't.
We are not going to dredge up, no pun intended. We are not going to dredge up the repeated issues you brought forward.
Thank you.
So with the last meeting, we were done. Does anyone else have questions or comments on Clearway? If not, Mr. Ridden, we'll wait to hear from you as far as you got the go-ahead from town administrator. And then if there's going to be a schedule set up, again, I suggest you do it through Heather Cora in Mr. Ferry's office for the visit. And I'm hoping by the time we get to that, Mr. Ferry will have well controlled all the weather and spring will be an early, whatever. Okay. Do you have anything, Jim, that you want to bring up?
Just one last clarification on that, because you had asked me before whether it included a field visit, and it does. We have a half-day field visit built into that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll keep the committee updated on where we are with the Clearway project.
Is that site locked? How would he gain entry and how would I gain?
I'm not sure exactly, but I'd say we'll check with the fire chief because he would have access to that site. And he would be able to tell us who the contact is. There's got to be somebody around local that.
I can't believe that would be unlocked.
No, except that access to it is very difficult. And I don't expect that the general public would be trying to drive up that road between the north parking lot and the farm area and And then, of course, it would be open all the way to the water tank anyhow. But if you could check with the fire chief and find out if he's got a local contact, that way we could give that name to Weston and Sampson so that when the time comes, or if there's a question ahead of time, we could let them know. Did you get the information on Blue Wave? Okay, do you want Mr. Pearson to just be here for that? I just want to make a comment.
Should, I think that's.
Okay, Jim, what this is about, we have a solar farms, two of them.
Mhm.
On the corner of Middle and Tremont Streets, two separate property owners, one huge farm. The project is still under construction.
Are we taking that item now?
Oh, yeah, wait a minute, I should, let me wrap this one up. Clearway. Anything else on Clearway? If not, okay, all right, I need a motion to take agenda 5C out of order, Blue Wave Solar, Tremont Middle Streets.
So moved.
For a second, you have a motion, a second, any discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so, this is an agricultural solar farm, so the panels sit very high off the ground. There is a, I'll call it a berm that goes around the project. And on top of the berm, there's going to be a fence, and outside the berm on the street side, there are going to be trees planted. Well, we've had major breaches, and I'll let Lisa Caledonia she represents the Conservation Commission on this committee, and she is the conservation agent. She and Mr. Ferry have been the ones that have been out there, and she can give you an update on where we are. And the reason I'm asking you to stay on for this discussion is that I sent an email to the town administrator telling him there are continuing problems out there with water going where it shouldn't, siltation and wetlands and things like that. And we may need Weston and Sampson to get involved in this before we actually ask you to do a final stormwater review. So basically, this is just some information about a project that Conservation has taken the lead on, but that stormwater is with them because we're all concerned about this, these breaches in the runoff. So Lisa, do you want to give them some history, please?
Yeah, so this is a dual use solar project, so it's gonna be farmed when all is complete. Level Design did the design, and Bates Construction is doing the site work. So there's a area that water always tends to gravitate towards anyway, on the corner of Middle and Tremont, and Tom can attest to it always being an issue there. However, now we're getting silt that's running off the site more than should be, even with some of the repairs they've made. So they have been very good with their SWIPs, and they have reported them to us weekly with photos. And I know they're trying to fix the issues. And I'm sorry, I forget your name. Elvira is here from Blue Wave, and I don't know if you want her to speak on some of the repairs they've made. And then we can continue the conversation, but that's probably the.
Okay, Elvira, if you'd like to come up to the podium, state your name and what you do for this project. Jim, again, this is just background information, but even if all of this gets resolved before it's time for the final stormwater review, I think you may hear some, you'll get some information for background, but also if we can't get it resolved, we may ask you to come in sooner. So I just leave that, okay? Thank you.
A quick question. So the water that is, I guess, pooling in that location, do we know, is that stormwater, is it groundwater, is it something else?
Stormwater, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just before you start, Mr. Ferry, Is the erosion that has occurred at that intersection on Tremont Street, is it the product? I saw all the cones out there. Is this from that runoff?
Partly, yes.
So the last monsoon, there was enough water leaving the site and crossing Middle to cause that, not maybe the entire cause, but a cause for the erosion on the side of Tremont?
Their water was part of it, yes.
It contributed to it.
It's contributing, yeah, it's the whole hill, so you get the Tremont Hill also.
Right, okay, like with all the cones that were out there, it was like a double take when I drove by there and thought, oh my goodness, this is not good. Okay, go ahead, Alvera.
All right. So my name is Elvira. I'm a project manager for Blue Wave. And yeah, I think just to speak to some of the repairs that we've done and how we've addressed the problem. We obviously had the breach of the berm. It washed out. That has since been repaired, and they added pipes through the berm that will, as well as like the stone sort of overflow to catch, to control the water flow and catch any sediment that may be in the water. So while the berm was not designed as a water retention feature originally, there is a stone base to it, allowing water to settle and flow underneath the berm, catching any sediment, and then anything that any volume of water above and beyond that will be able to rise and go through the pipes as sort of additional drainage through the berm in that location now. And then in addition, we have installed erosion control matting over sort of sloped areas and leading up to that corner of the berm to slow down the flow of the water and try to sort of minimize the amount of sediment and hold back any sediment. So I think we've obviously seen a significant amount of water and have needed to address things as they've come up, but that's the action that has been taken so far.
Do you have anything else to add?
Tom's dying to say something.
Huh?
I see him.
Am I allowed to speak?
Oh, yes, you're the guy in charge of weather.
It's looking nice. It's like
Thank you.
stabilized a lot last week, actually, yes.
Yep.
The pipe, I had a question, the pipe.
Yep.
Pipes being installed, are they temporarily permanent?
They are intended to be permanent. I think their use will be very minimal once the site is stabilized and there's vegetation. But it is intended as sort of an emergency overflow
Correct.
measure
It's not-
to avoid.
Right, it's not part of the main retention.
No, it is not. The berm was never intended to be a retention measure. It's part of the sort of visual screening of the site.
That was what I was getting at with that. So if they're gonna be permanent, even if they're emergency controls, is some type of maintenance that's gonna be handed down, with the project to make sure they are maintained properly.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
they don't, then that's gonna help create another breach.
Yes, indeed.
I can see the need for them, and as long as it's not part of the original retention.
Yep.
It's definitely a go. And so have you explored if the sediment from the storm events compromised that stone, or are you still good?
As far as I've seen, it's good. Now, I don't think the recent storms were big enough to cause either breaching or a significant sediment
Yeah, talk about
that area.
the stone that was buried, those stones.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't know. It's under the berm, so I presume it's
3-4 feet of stone instead of through a filter fabric first.
right.
So it's supposed to go underneath the berm, come back up nice and slow.
Yeah. I don't know. I will look into it and make sure it's addressed in case there is.
We
How do I understand that? I look-
That particular spot, we would inherit a problem with the town because it's right there.
Okay.
right at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
So
With the agricultural
component, yeah.
component above, you're always going to possibly have disturbed ground, which will add to that siltation, plugging up that fabric.
Yeah. No, I think that, I mean, as you are pointing out, that needs to be part of the maintenance plan.
Yes.
Yep.
So Mr. Chance was in the area. He's actually a Conservation Commission member and he wanted to look at the site. So he went out and walked around with one of the Bates guys.
Okay.
And he has some things to say when it's time. I don't know.
Okay, have you gotten SWIPs from this project or updates? That's the ones we get.
Yeah, I haven't recently. And
Is that Alexandra's
yes.
task?
Just
Okay.
haven't in a few weeks. I think she's maybe a week or two behind.
Okay. I know there.
And then some weather. There was some weather too.
Yeah, well, Mr. Perry, holidays don't count when you're in charge of weather. Holiday doesn't take, weather doesn't take a holiday. Yeah, I'm gonna call him Mr. LaChance. I just want to comment for procedural reasons. The Concom is a 5-member commission. There are 3 of you present. You constitute a quorum. Therefore,
A voting member.
whatever he says, he can make the statements, but I would caution you on discussion of it. I'll just leave it that way, okay?
Okay.
I know you're not a voting member, but
Yeah,
I
understand.
yeah, okay, you're up.
Yeah, I viewed the site, the back looks amazing, did an amazing job out back. I've witnessed, I was out in every single storm for my own personal, just out in that kind of weather, and I noticed a substantial amount of brown, dark water leaving that site. The way that hole was plugged with rocks, I just find that, and the way the hill is shaped, it has to fill that whole thing to get the water out. And I just don't see what was done to be substantial enough to filtrate that water. Just my view on what was done. And another thing, I've done a lot of research recently in regards to all the solar fields we have. In regards to compaction issues, with the level of equipment that goes up and down these rows on these sites. Compaction, don't know if the figures that an engineer would put in to gauge the amount of water.
TR-55.
TR-55. I don't think from multiple evidence standpoints equal the runoff you get from a solar field due to the level of compaction that is probably uncomparable to normal sites. Every single solar field we have, all the calculations for the basins are wrong. We're having basin issues throughout the community. I've seen basin issues throughout Massachusetts. The runoff that happens, the sheeting effect that happens after the amount of equipment that goes on these sites and up and down these rows changes soil composition, compaction down to 6 feet, which completely changes what needs to be done to accommodate for these basins. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, did you have any questions, Jim? Again, this is for informational purposes. This isn't yet assigned to Weston and Sampson, so, but if you heard anything or you wish to make a comment, or you'll wait to hear from us, whatever.
I haven't heard anything in particular about this project other than what we've discussed today, I don't think. It may have come up in a conversation as an item, but that's about it. I was kind of curious, so
Given to me.
Sorry?
Excuse me, it's picking up on the mic. Go ahead.
All right, so I did have a quick question, just curiosity mostly. I think Alvira mentioned some pipes installed in the berm, and I was wondering, were those tow drains or were they something else?
Sorry, were they?
Excuse me, excuse me. I'm sorry, but the mics are picking up your conversation.
So I'm not entirely familiar with what a tow drain is, but I can explain how the pipes are installed if that.
Sure, and if you want, I can tell you what I mean by that.
That works too.
Okay, yeah, so sometimes in a dam or other sort of similar structure that holds water, and I know the berms weren't intended to hold water, but they kind of are, I think, de facto. Sometimes a drain pipe will be installed to drain water away from the base of the structure so that it doesn't become sort of liquefied and fail.
Okay. So no, I do not think that was the intent. They are installed high, like above, I think a foot above ground elevation. So that once water reaches that level, it will be able to drain out and not compromise the berm. But it's not intended to lead water out immediately.
Okay, so they penetrate the entire berm, I guess, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, that's a different thing. Okay, thank you very much. I was just curious.
Yeah, so the only other thing I was wondering was, from a conservation perspective, obviously, if there is sheathing going on, I was thinking that maybe we should put some check dams out as a temporary measure in the open field area. So that's really what I had requested originally, maybe last month.
Yes, I think that was done. I didn't have time to swing by today, but
Okay.
It may be done. I know they didn't want to do it right away because they needed to finish stabilizing the work on the berm. It may be done. I haven't been there today either.
I'll check next time I drive by.
yeah, I think the last report indicated that wattles had been laid out sort of
And then.
along the contour of the slope.
I had one more question.
Yes,
Does installing these pipes in this berm change the original design specifications per what the berm was supposed to hold back? By putting these pipes, does this lower their requirements per this berm originally designed?
all I will say about the original approved plans is if a modification was made that is not in those plans, you gotta go back to the planning board to see if it's considered a minor or a major modification. So if there have been any pipes installed or anything else in what was originally designed, there is a question. So
And also to the Conservation Commission.
so that's something we need to know.
Yes.
If there have been changes made,
If they're permanent, if they're temporary, then.
right, but if they're permanent, then the planning board has got to get involved again. And they will determine whether it's a major or a minor modification. Minors, obviously is the one requiring less action. But that's really a planning board question. And as she said, conservation. So, Lisa, if you could follow up, or you could let Lisa know the answers to the questions relative, and Jason's about the pipes.
Yep.
We'll go from there.
I can probably answer part of the question now. Given that the original intent of the berm was not to hold back water, it's just a aesthetic feature more than anything. Because it's not built as nor was it intended to be built as a water retention feature. Adding the pipes shouldn't change the design intent of the berm. Does that make sense?
adding pipes, when you say add pipes, were these pipes part of the original plans, or have these pipes been added as a measure to hopefully ameliorate some of this runoff that we're having?
Correct, they were added with the intent of reducing the risk of the berm blowing out.
Okay, and when they were added, were the original approved plans modified?
I don't actually know. So Alexandra was part of the,
So you're kind of right. Especially, and on, it, I don't know about. So the berm, I don't believe is part of the stormwater control. The berm is more part of this fencing. There's an 11-foot fence going on top of that.
I know that.
So that berm is over a trench that's wider than a berm. And it's not really directing water through the stone. It's, if anything, it's a buffer. The pipe was added. I don't believe the pipe was on original design, so we're both asking and aware.
And I'm not questioning the berm at this point. I'm only questioning if there has been piping added to the project anywhere. And they were not in the original approved plans from the planning board, then this has to go back to the planning board showing where these pipes have been placed and what the feeling of the planning board is relative to minor or major. Once the plans are approved, obviously by the planning board, that's the gospel everybody's supposed to follow. And any changes that come along, for example, we actually had conservation and planning involved with requests to cut trees on a project. And initially they came to the Stormwater Committee. I said, not our turf. Depending on where you are, you got to talk to conservation and planning. And as it turned out, they did have to go to both. And in one case, I believe it was a major modification. So all I'm saying is, if there have been pipes installed or anything else that has been done to try to help resolve the water problem, it's got to go back to planning. So I know you are going to talk to Kerry about the plans. So if you would let whoever at Blue Wave know this needs to be looked at, because the other thing too is the town will have a final stormwater inspection. And they will go back to the original approved plans. Obviously, if there are amendments to the plans, they will look at those because they'll get an as-built and see if these match. So you don't want pipes turning up in as-builts that weren't there in the beginning, because that's a problem, okay? All right, and we're actually going forward, any additional pipes or anything else that were not in the original plan should have gone to the planning board before the work was done. I understand we had the flooding and we had the monsoon and we had the runoff into the wetlands and all that, but anyhow, this needs to be followed up.
Sure, yeah.
So my only other question was, so that berm was not designed as a basin.
Mhm.
So it is clearly acting as a basin. And to me, that's a problem. If we're getting breaches and they put it back, it's acting as a basin.
And yet it's not retaining the water,
And
it's not retention.
retaining as-
It's
not.
Yeah,
retaining.
I understand it was designed because the fence is going to go out. You're not supposed to see these things from the road. The fact that they're so high, they're gonna build a whatever, but
It's acting as a basin, and that needs to be figured out. I know if I've seen hands-on that even after stabilization with the compaction issue, runoff is a problem with solar sites. So that will have to be, I mean, probably seen and then dealt with. But I'm almost assured that with the level of compaction that happens after solar installation, that'll continue as a basin.
With the drainage that's installed underneath the berm that you explained was sort of the riprap like underneath the berm. It's not designed as or it doesn't really function as a basin either, right? Because the water still goes through.
I saw
the-
firsthand the water collecting.
Right, because the amount of water that fell during that storm was probably higher than what we typically see. And with stabilization and with now our additional sort of drainage features, that also includes ways to mitigate sediment in the soil getting outside of the berm. I think that is
So for that to be a
in the direction
farm,
for it to.
there will be continual turned up soil.
Yeah, it's a dual
Yeah.
use, yeah.
So there will always be sediment loose on that site. So having those holes, even though it's not a basin, it's gonna collect, and as soon as it collects, it's either gonna dump out those pipes, clear brown water. So I mean, the pipe thing has to get resolved with planning, and I would have to advocate for an adjustment or something to know that a farm is gonna continually have dirty dirt. I shouldn't say dirty dirt, loose soil that creates sediment. And if we get a rain and it touches those pipes, it's just gonna be.
So I think the next step is you need to determine, to use your terminology, additional drainage. What does additional drainage mean as it relates to the original approved plans? If additional drainage means modification, changes to something else, you need to go to the planning board, okay? And Lisa, from a conservation standpoint, is this on your agenda for tomorrow night?
No.
Blue Wave isn't?
No, but I think he might bring it up under other correspondence if he wants to discuss this.
Or unanticipated items?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, I'll leave it there. This will be on the agenda for next month, so we can get an update on where we are with Blue Wave and Lisa. If in the meantime, you can get in touch with Kerry at the planning board to get a copy of the original plans. Because right now we're getting into an area that is both conservation and stormwater concern, but without knowing the information relative to the approval by the planning board, we really are, that's the next step. So does anyone else have any comments or questions relative to Clearway? Jim, did you have anything?
On Blue Wave or on other topics?
Just the Blue Wave project. In other words, this has got to be looked at by planning before stormwater on Concom determines what it should do or can do or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't have anything more at this time. I would, before I comment, I'd want to take a look or have James take a look at site plans and calculations that might have been done at the site.
Okay. We're all set then. So if you would stay in touch with Lisa so she knows what's happening.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
can I make a motion that we skip down to 8?
Yes, we have a motion to take agenda item 8 out of order, unanticipated items, 0 Elm Street. Is there a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Berry.
Tonight.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, well, I know Jim is here, after we had some preliminary discussions with planning board and Mike, but I really wanted Jason to get to hear what you had to say before he had to leave, and he's trying to operate a crane at the same time he's here, so I don't know how you do that, but anyway, so the floor is yours. Jim.
Okay, is that to me? I couldn't tell.
Yes.
So we've reviewed the 0 Elm Street project a couple of times. We looked at it initially in the early weeks of December, provided a comment letter, I think on the 14th, and then received subsequent subsequent materials, which were reviewed roughly on the 20th for the planning board. And we've also taken a look at it from a conservation standpoint. And as part of that project, there are stormwater systems and stormwater discussions that are part of that item, part of 0 Elm Street. And we know at this point that it hasn't really come to the Stormwater Committee formally. So we were so from a procedural standpoint, you know, again, we provided review of it for the planning board, and at that time we did review stormwater, and we did that on the second review too. We did not review stormwater on the Conservation Commission side, although the review probably would have been pretty similar to what we did for the planning board, because we knew it hadn't come to the Stormwater Committee yet. And our understanding is that before, you know, either of those bodies approved a permit application, that they would want to at least seek the advice of the Stormwater Committee. So I can go over with you all sort of quickly what the items we found. We did have stormwater comments on that. We can go over those comments now if you would like. I'm not sure whether what the appropriate thing to do is at this point, whether we should be sharing the comments that we provided to the planning board or not. But then there's a larger issue, and it's really outside of this particular item, but there's a larger issue as to how we make sure that these things are all sequenced properly in the future, you know, to make sure we're not holding applicants up. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Lisa, or Nancy, for how you'd like me to proceed.
Okay, I agree with you, Jim. Without seeing what you've written so far, I think we need to request those documents from Conservation and Planning. We need to have them on an agenda for discussion. I don't want to hold things up, but it's, yeah, and yes, we should have been in the beginning, especially since the area where this is on Elm Street is, I'll call it sloped. That's probably it's more than sloped if it's where I think it is. I realize there's I'll call it a farm road. I know that there's access to it on the east side, but Richmond Hill is the highest point in town. And so I need to get in touch with Mike Mullen and the planning board, and Lisa's here from Concom. So if the Concom says give Stormwater a copy and the planning board says give Stormwater a copy, we can get this out to the committee and go from there. The reason I'm hesitant, Jim, is because everything relative to the work that Weston and Sampson does for the town has to go through Mr. Mullen. And since we have not been a part of this, I'm hesitant to say to you now, tell us everything you know, because you might end up, again, I don't know the contents. And really, since the work has been done for other committees or commissions, they should say, okay, give that to Stormwater because we need input from them. I think procedurally, it's the best way to go. If in fact there is an issue relative to permitting that needs to be expedited, I can always call a special meeting of the Stormwater Committee. Or we could have a joint meeting with Planning and Stormwater and Concom so that we all understand the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyhow, that's where I'm coming from because of what has already been established relative to work with Weston and Sampson.
That all makes sense to me. I know in talking with Mike about it the other day, you know, he had asked that I put together an email that would include yourself, Lisa, himself, and Carrie Easterday to indicate kind of like what we saw as maybe an appropriate procedural path for this kind of thing in the future. So I'm gonna put that together, and I guess we'll sounds like we'll circle back around on 0 Elm Street at some point in the future through the
Yeah.
storm committee.
Yeah, and as I said, if there is a timeline that's been established for that project, we need to be aware of it. And like you say, we can have joint meetings, all 3 boards together. Whatever. I will send an email to Mike Mullen and let him know that this did come up and that Stormwater is looking for direction. We need records. And we're following the procedure not to really get into it with a discussion with Weston and Sampson until we're all on the same page. So it'll tie in okay with what you're gonna write.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, and I believe it is on the agenda for tomorrow night in the planning board.
Concom,
Conservation?
Oh, I'm sorry, planning board tonight, Conservation Commission. I'm not sure, was 0 Elm Street on? It was on for tomorrow night as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mixing up my nights.
what time is the planning board meeting tonight?
I want to say it's 7.
Okay, all right. I may try to attend that. I got a week to go to, but if I'm here, I'll let them know what we discussed, and we're obviously willing, but we need the okay. We need documents or whatever, okay? Does anyone have any questions on procedure on this one? Okay. Are there any others here we need to take out of order? Just as we look through these, because we're back to, we're getting close to time, so I'm going to right now. Okay, agenda item 4B, 485 Fremont land disturbance, endangered species. Anything on that, Lisa?
We have to wait until the spring, and he's going to be restoring somewhat with stabilization and removal of berms. He put the posts up for conservation, so he's heading in the right direction.
Okay, this one's gonna drop off the agenda for now, and when you're ready to have this come up again, if you'd let Heather know. I don't want to keep putting stuff in, especially when we have to wait for, the weather to come.
Excuse me, I actually have to step away.
Yeah, okay,
Thank
fine,
you, everybody.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
If I could, I didn't want to leave too early or bust into the middle of a conversation either. But if you don't need me, then I thought I might drop off as well.
Okay, I need a motion to put agenda item 7A out of order, just so I can give Jim Reardon an update.
I'll make a motion to take item 7A out of order.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, Jim, what I want to mention about this, ISM Solar 2320 William Street. This is a solar farm that was constructed on part of a pig farm years ago. This project has been up and running. To the best of my knowledge, it was actually built and developed prior to the Stormwater Committee being active, and enforcement of stormwater rules, regs, and all that good stuff, the Clean Water Act, all fell to the planning board. I'm requesting records, if we have any, of inspections and all this. But since this is an ongoing solar farm, that Mr. Perry, have you been there? Once? In a blue moon? Okay. What I'm looking for is to have a site visit. I've mentioned it to Mike, but we haven't made plans. And what my main concern is, if we don't have records, I need to know where the SWIP is. I need to know if the stormwater system, whatever is there is being maintained. If there has to be mowing done. We really have no information on this solar farm. So I don't know if down the road, this is one ISM Solar would be, again, contacting Weston and Sampson and saying, was it built according to the original approved plans? Because right now I can't find documentation. And because we weren't around then, so to speak, but the fact that it is there and operating and has been generating electricity for a while, there is a responsibility on the part of the town to make sure this thing is operating, I guess, as designed. It's being maintained as designed, that if there are basins or ponds or whatever's up there, appropriate measures are being taken. And the other thing I'm trying to find out is if there's a local contact who might be responsible for making sure that maintenance is done. So again, this is just information. So if down the road you hear about ISM Solar at 2320 William Street, you'll know what it's about. But other than that, I don't have any information for you. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. All right, I think we're all set, Jim. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us.
Okay. Agenda item 4D, items for upcoming events. The calendar went well, the brochures were done. We have, anyone needs brochures, that they want to get some. I have put them in various locations, town offices, a building department, town clerk. I think there's some in the assessor's office, some in the foyer, but anyhow, there is a small supply in Heather Tom's office. The main bulk of them are in storage at the old library that we'll use for future events, but anyhow, that's done. I will mention that the invoice was processed and will be paid this Thursday. Do you remember offhand what that was? It was 2000 and.
I actually have the exact number.
Okay, because we're supposed to note in the records that an invoice was paid and what the amount of money was. And it's, all of it's paid to Bristol Plymouth.
$2,226.25.
Okay, so that was for 700 calendars and 1,500 stormwater brochures. The actual thoughts about what kind of items we need, I had a couple of ideas given to me. I gotta get back to Bristol Plymouth because they also have I'll call it an array of stuff they've done for others. I'll have to see what kind of prices we're talking about. Because they would be acting like the company we've done business with. Meaning, I know we need more shopping bags. We're down to one case, I believe, at the library. And we know that those are popular and they do wear out. So we'll be looking at that. The company we did business with, they just buy blank bags and then put the town seal and our logo on it. So I can take a bag to Bristol Plymouth and get a price from them. They're gonna buy bags and whatever. We will not be paying for labor, obviously, but and they don't charge us a setup time every time they use the town seal, whereas our other supplier does. Which is annoying. But I will report back on this. This will be an agenda item for next month, and I will report back on my visit to BP and get some more ideas from them. I have received pictures for the 2025 calendar, and I'm asking again, anybody that's got them, and I'll mention these this at whatever meetings I'm at, just email them to me. I did get some spam a number of times from supposedly Mr. Ferry, but I know it wasn't from him. I did get real pictures from Heather. And I happen to have two this morning, and I looked at it, and it didn't have the attachment. It said, click on this address, and I thought, that isn't how you send pictures. So I checked the town street listing, and this name does not turn up anywhere, so I just deleted it. I figure if the person was sincere, they're gonna get back to me and say, did you get my pictures? And I'll say, send them as an attachment, not as an email address. I don't respond to them. So anyhow, that's where we are with that. The stormwater agent position, this is now agenda item 4F. I sent an email to Mike Mullen, and there were actually two topics. So I could give you an update today. The first one that I said to Mike was, there are two items hanging from 2023 that I would like to get resolved. The first one is Weston and Sampson review of our stormwater documents and making updates as needed. And the person at Weston and Sampson is Joris Schwartz. The second item was stormwater agent. I found an old job description when Todd was the health agent and the stormwater agent. And I asked Mike if he wanted me to try to update the stormwater portion or what. So I heard back from Mike, and he said it was okay to use this as a progress report. So he wrote back, hi Nancy, sorry for the delay. I just wanted to get back to you on this. I am working to move forward with number one, which means having Joris Schwartz from Weston and Sampson go over our stormwater bylaw regs, focusing on the change that was made to the requirements for after construction, which I've mentioned a few times, and which the EPA is now cracking down on communities that relied on the state because the state didn't update the regs. So all of us that relied on the state are on the list. So, and Mike is putting together the applications for money from the ARPA money, which goes back to COVID, because that's how we plan to pay for this work by Joris Schwartz. In terms of the second question, the stormwater agent, I've begun a discussion with Jim Reardon about incorporating a project / on-call inspection budget into every applicable 53G review scope. In the meantime, based on the current bylaw, it is the responsibility of the Board of Health and their employees to ensure compliance with the bylaw, including adherence to the bylaw for inspections. So I'm not sure who would do those inspections. I'll have to check with the Board of Health because there isn't anyone currently qualified to do the stormwater inspections that were done by Mr. Pilling when he was the agent. So anyhow, and I think I did have a conversation before I wrote this to Mike about the possibility of having Weston and Sampson do on-call, but on-call means I need it now. Typical large engineering firms put together proposals and get them reviewed and approved and then get the funding. Whereas an on-call thing would mean there would have to be money already here so that, for example, if there's another breach if we had somebody from Weston and Sampson and there's another breach somewhere, wherever, a phone call could be made. We need somebody ASAP, and somebody would come to see what the problem was. If you will, to do the site work that was done when we had somebody to do in those inspections. So, as he said, he's talking to Jim Reardon, so we'll just follow that and see how it goes. The next is agenda item 6A, Conservation Commission updates on 508 Custom 0 Lawton Street, map 10, lot 53.
Yeah, so that item actually can get removed because the information that was presented at our December meeting, or maybe it was November. In any case, I think it might have been November Conservation Commission meeting, is that the the area of disturbance was outside our jurisdiction based on some aerial photo interpretation and stuff, so. He does not need to file with us. I know he's proceeded and he filed with the planning board. So that's where we're at with conservation as far as 508 customs.
Okay,
Old Horton, 0 Horton Street, map 10 lot 53. The site down by the church in the western portion of town. They have actually provided us with a restoration plan that will not be implemented until the spring. I took this item off the conservation agenda for temporarily until the spring.
okay,
But yeah,
Okay.
it's, he has to restore the whole site. I was able to confirm with DEP, if he's not leaving any fill in place, then he doesn't need any DEP permits, so.
okay, so this one will be off hours. If again, something comes up and you want to bring this up at a meeting, just let Heather know to put it on. New business, 7B Wellington Acres. Anything there to report? I assume this had something to do with the inspections we did way back when, the basins, the septic field and all that. Was there a water problem up there, flooding from the rain or anything?
Not with what you just alluded to. It's just, water in the west side of the development. It's a known water problem. It was a surprise to the new residents.
Oh, but it wasn't part of what we were responsible for.
So I met with the resident at his location, went over some of his ideas to help relieve the water and whatnot, and he's gonna leave it alone. As now he knows his property's actually fortified a little bit. And if there is any work in his backyard, he is gonna create a plan and go to the conservation, or at least reach out to Lisa on the sidelines to go
Okay.
from there.
Is this a new home or is it a home that's been there?
He's the second owner,
Oh, okay,
but it's in Sunny's Way, so it's fairly new.
okay, all right. Let's see, public input, guess not. Correspondence, I don't have anything. I need a motion to approve the minutes of November 15th,
One edit
okay?
under 508 customs. I believe it should say they may be within 100 feet of jurisdictional area. I don't know if I said they are or they may, but they may makes more sense because they weren't. They were just outside.
Okay, so have you got a copy of those minutes here?
Yes.
Okay, so would you just mark what you want changed so that Heather has it?
And I was not at the next meeting, so I don't have.
So we could still vote to accept them as amended.
Yeah. December 27th was the site visit. No, excuse me, December 27th, that, good grief, that was January. December 27th was when we reviewed the proposals. We reviewed the report from Weston and Sampson on Grasshopper, which brought us to today's agenda item. And we reviewed the proposal for the work that Weston and Sampson is going to do at Clearway. So that's all that was a brief meeting with a couple of votes, accepting the report and okaying the scope of the project work, the outline that they will do at Clearway. And I just want to comment that I did not allow public input, a discussion on those two agenda items because, first of all, the report on Brook Street Solar Grasshopper, the report had been completed by Weston and Sampson. It had been reviewed, and there were no changes made that would have affected us acting to accept that report. It was pretty clear what they found. And then on Clearway, it was a proposal that took care of the items that I had requested. Initially, there was some confusion about exactly what it was that was wanted. I did follow it up with Clearway records that I found downstairs that contained red ink from Mr. Pilling when he reviewed the plans, and I did give those to Jim Pearson when we went to Brook Street. So I did not feel that public discussion was needed simply because one was a final report and the other one was a proposal. And really, these were just, if you will, formalities that had to be approved or acted on so that Weston and Sampson could continue on with the work. So I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of November 15th as amended and December 27th as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion further on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vote unanimous. The report on expenses, the only thing we had was what Heather gave us relative to the payment to Bristol Plymouth of $2,226.25 for the educational materials that they provided. And do you still have calendars at the highway department?
Yes.
A few? Okay, I've got a few at home, but if anyone's asking for calendars, just let them know there's some at the highway department, and I've got a few, just so, but the reception was very good on those. Does anyone know of, or can think of any agenda items that we need that we haven't already discussed, something that we gotta do for next month? Certainly something from Blue Wave relative to the status of whatever has happened that may have not been originally approved, so we'll figure out that, yes. Yes, thank you. So. We didn't put that on here, did we?
It was, and then we amended it and it
Dropped off. Okay. Yeah, Juneteenth, which is June the 19th, and you're probably saying, why are we talking about the June meeting? The reason is, Juneteenth is a holiday. That's the third Wednesday. So what I need to know is we need to set up another date because we've got to let Leanne know. Because we have all those Wednesdays reserved. So the question is, do you want to meet that week on the Tuesday or the Thursday? Or do you want to meet either the 12th, which is the week before, or the 26th, the week after? Does anyone have a preference? The only thing I see is,
I would not want to meet on that Thursday because of conservation.
so you wouldn't want it on a Thursday, okay? That's the 20th.
Okay.
So I'm sitting,
What is June 19th holiday?
Juneteenth, that's the Juneteenth holiday that recognizes the date, I think was the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh, geez. Okay, enough said. I'll keep quiet.
So would you want to do it on the Tuesday, the 18th? Or do you want to move it to either the Wednesday, the 12th, or Wednesday, the 26th?
I'm good with the 18th.
Okay. Anyone have a preference? Obviously, I got to send this out to the rest of the committee. So let's set a tentative date of Tuesday, June the 18th at 1 p.m. for the monthly Stormwater Committee meeting. Heather, if you could check with Leanne to see if that's open, tell her it's tentative, but then send out an email to the whole Stormwater Committee and see if anyone has a problem with that date. If not, go ahead and book it. All right. Okay, does anyone else have anything? Hearing none, motion to adjourn? Somebody make one?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, we are adjourned and it looks like it's 2:43. Looks like 2:43 p.m. Now somebody can shut that thing off. I'm glad we got it to work.